A California couple is fighting to keep their daughter's killer off the streets. In 2010, 13-year-old Emily Shane was struck and killed on the Pacific Coast Highway by a suicidal driver racing at high speeds for miles across Malibu. 2 years after he killed Emily, Sina Khan-Kanian was convicted of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 15 years to life. In 2023, he was granted parole, but Governor Gavin Newsom reversed that parole decision. A year later, in October 2024, the child's killer was again granted parole by the California Parole Board. Emily's parents are pleading with Governor Newsom to again block the parole board decision and keep that man who murdered their child behind bars. Newsom's office said the governor will review the case once he receives it from the parole board. Earlier, I spoke to Emily's parents, Ellen and Michael Shane, about their efforts to keep Emily's killer behind bars. Michelle and Ellen, very nice to meet you. And as I said to Michelle off camera, it's not the best circumstances. The fact that your daughter was horribly murdered and now the killer may get out. So, I regret the circumstances in which we're meeting. So with that, let me ask you, is the killer going to get out? He's been paroled, but is Governor Newsom going to stop it?
So let me start by saying Governor Newsom, this has been going on now for, this is our third parole. He got 15 years to life, and starting in year 10, he kept applying for parole. And on the first parole hearing, the parole board said 3 more years and then we'll hear your case. And they denied his parole. And within a year, he was back in front of them again. And at that time, they allowed him parole. And Governor Newsom came in and said, no, this guy's not ready for parole. And it's obvious because he's in a facility that's a drug and mental rehab facility. And, and he's never been in general population. And now he's up for parole again. And they granted him parole again. There's 120 days of where they do a deep dive to see that the parole board made the right ruling. That was October 22nd was when he was granted parole. After that period, Governor Newsom has 30 days to decide whether or not to squash it or allow it to go through.
Alan, obviously it's not my decision, but I must say, having covered these cases for 100 years, he has shown no remorse. And what he said about your daughter when he killed her a short time after, at least what I've read, just to me makes him ineligible. That he shouldn't be out there, not just to punish him for what he did to your daughter, but he really has relinquished, any privilege to be out in society, I think. But that's me.
I have to agree with you. Someone who remorselessly kills a child should not be, I had trouble with the early parole. I don't understand why, when a judge and a jury come to a conclusion that at least the minimum sentence is not respected. And we're talking about someone who commits a heinous crime. Second of all, you have to understand, as I'm sure your listeners do, or your viewers, that he's coached before he speaks at these hearings. So that, the first hearing, and Michelle, I'm sure you remember, he was actually reading. Do you remember that? When they said to him, can you please express what you're trying to say off the cuff without your notes? He could not do it. The last 2 times he was able to do it, but it sounds like a recording, and yes, he says the right things. He does. But what we have to think about, and I would hope what the parole board, whoever makes a decision, has to think about, is the realities of letting someone like this, as Michelle said, someone who is in a mental facility in a prison, in a very structured environment on medication, letting them out into society at this point. And you have to understand as well that he killed our daughter when he was off his meds.
Well, the other thing, there are 2 issues really, is the safety of the community. The second thing is for what he did to your child and what he did to your family. And, so many people watch like parents like yours and think, well, that never could happen. We have no idea. And it's so hard to, I'm not in your shoes, but, is there any way to express your pain of what you went through? Is there, just so people get a better understanding of this?
It's really interesting because I saw him drive by and was kind of sitting there going, oh man, this is going to end badly. And you never, ever think that you are going to be the victim. It's always somebody else. It's never you. And when it becomes you, listen, as Ellen and I like to say, on April 3rd at 11:59, at 5:59, we were one way. At 6 p.m., we were another. And we are that other way now. There's no description on the anguish or the feeling that you have, in the sense that a person that you created and would give your life for, and I defy any parent to say different, who loves their children, in a second, I would have traded places with her. And to live with that forever, and we are 14 years in, and we are a lot different than in the first couple of years of this horror, but the longing and the missing is always there. You just learn to live with it within yourself, and you have to figure out how you can process that. That's how Ellen did it. She started the foundation, the Emily Shane Foundation, because she took a problem that was in Emily's life and realized there are a lot of children like that, and turned it around and said, okay, I'm going to look to see if there's somebody else that might fit into this, and created this fantastic foundation.
Ellen, I noticed it behind your back. I noticed Emily, and of course I read about the Emily Shane Foundation, but I'm curious how you got the strength to do that. It's, you lose a child's murder. How do you turn that around to help others? What was it? How do you do that?
I felt honestly compelled to do something. I felt so helpless, as anyone who's had to deal with death, especially a significant death, but any death. There's nothing you can do. It's final. It's done. And this was a way for me, honestly, it helped me through my grief, but at the same time, I felt driven to do something that would keep her alive, her memory alive, her legacy alive. And so I tried to think of things that would be significant to Emily and that would help other people, because she was really like that in her young life. And so that's how this whole thing came about. And you can ask Michelle, I didn't know what I was doing, but I forged ahead. And I think, honestly, when I think back to it, it was a great way for me to cope with the pain and loss, because I was doing something constructive.
So getting back to this, 2 points. One is to protect the community, which is why I think Newsom shouldn't. But the second, and I'm going to paraphrase this because it's TV, is it true that he said she deserved to die?
Yes.
And of course,
I heard that in testimony in court. Yes.
And I've greatly sanitized it because it's far crueler than what I just said. But anyway, to both of you, I hope Governor Newsom protects the community, and good luck with the Emily Shane Foundation, because you're really doing a good thing.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you so much.
Really
appreciate the
appreciate it.
opportunity to share our story. Thank you.